salted caramel cookie. It's one of those kind of cookies I wasn't sure if I would enjoy if I was a little kid, but I tried it a little while ago on a wander here, and it's amazing. So, welcome to another edition of the Wandering Ukie Cheese Café. And I'm coming to you over here from the Brûlerie Saint-Denis, or the Saint-Denis Roasters, appropriately enough on Saint-Denis Street. It's funny enough that when I was looking at some of the mugs I had at home, I did get, oops, wrong side. I did have one that had the logo on here, and I can't even remember where did I even come from originally. I know I've been to the location of this brewer, this roaster actually, because when I think brewer, I think microbrewery / bar. I've been to the one that's on Masson Street, kind of close to, I would say 6th or 7th Avenue, but I don't have any recollection of why we had that there in the first place. But anyways, I wanted to get out of the house. It's right now the very end of the very first weekend of February 2023, and we're reaching the high of -14 with the wind chill. I don't know, any of you who are watching this outside of Canada, you probably think, that's crazy weather. Well, here's the thing too, is we're just finishing up a weekend where with the wind chill it was around -40, -42, and it's worse. So I used to remember getting out a lot as a kid, but in that kind of weather, it's humid, like very damp, and it's going to penetrate all your clothes. It's best to stay indoors. So considering I was trying to take some shelter to protect myself from the cold, and also the fact that I had to work at home in the office, I felt like I had to get out of the house anyways. And I thought this would be a nice little prologue before I get home. I do a little bit of cooking at home. The recipe I have in mind is something that's based on what I've had over at Gibby's a while back. I'm going to be doing some Salmon Wellington tonight. It's not quite Beef Wellington, but it's definitely easier to make and especially more affordable. So once we're done over here and getting a little wandering done, we'll get right to this. But before we continue on, I'm going to give you one more suggestion. Hit the like button below preemptively if you enjoy my stuff, because the more likes it gets, the more it's promoted down the road. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and put the notifications on. Whenever I put together a new video, you're going to get a pop-up that it's ready to view.
I can give you what you want, but you got to go home with me. I forgot some good old love, and then I got some in store. When I get through throwing it on you, you got to come back for more.
You know, I passed by this church countless times, and I just noticed it's called the Parish of Saint Edouard. So Saint Eddie is supposed to be Eddie Valiant from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or Eddie the mascot from Iron Maiden. Yeah, that's probably a bad joke I did right there. So, I just made my way onto Beauvais Street East within Rosemont, familiar territory for me. Had it been a regular day, I probably would have walked from St. Denis Street up to here, but the truth is that in the interest of saving time, and especially to protect myself against the cold, I just hopped on the subway to come up here. So I do have a few other ingredients I want to pick up before I get to the Salmon Wellington, and of course brew myself. So I wouldn't be doing a proper cooking episode if I wasn't getting the beer. You know, people will probably want to drink some wine while they're cooking. I do beer. It is what it is.
Baby, here I am, I'm a man on the scene. I can give you what you want, just come go home with me.
Yep. If I'm in Rosemont, there's no way I cannot go to Peluso to get myself a nice ration. It's like one of my favorite places to visit here, just because the selection of beer is astronomical. There's so many around, some that I can't find near home, and almost like they have some exclusive deals, I would say. A little bit like Sit Fret. I guess gives me a reason to come back, because it feels like I'm a kid in the candy store or finding some brand new treasures.
Are you out of touch? I guess I never noticed that much. Uranium lover, I'm live on your wire. Ooh, come and take me, whoever you are.
So it's been a little bit of a journey, but like I said, I want to give myself some shelter from the cold and also give myself time to be able to do a bit of cooking today before I lost the mood. And of course I had to promise a little bit of a beer that I'm going to be doing tonight. So what I have here is something that's called Shack Wow. Shack Wow, what the hell is that thing? I'm going to have to Google that to find out. But maybe I'll wait till afterwards. It's a New England IPA, which is made out of Galanga from Ma Brasserie. So Ma Brasserie is another one of those Rosemont treasures I discovered within the last year. Their brewery is actually located on Holt Street, very close to Iberville Street, and I've actually been there before, had a few drinks over there, and it was quite awesome. And actually, what I could do then is I'm going to put a card on the top right corner in case you want to revisit that episode. Because I did do a bit of a stroll around the Plateau and Rosemont around Saint-Jean last year. Some pretty neat stuff. Explosive. Well, it's not the worst thing that happened. It wasn't caught on camera, but there was one time that I was pouring a beer for myself outside, and I don't know how pressurized it was, but next thing I know is I opened it up and half of my beer exploded all over the table. So it's like I lost all of my portion of it. Sometimes life just isn't fair. Okay, looks like this one has a bit of a lighter color, but it is definitely a New England IPA, and I do taste it, so I know it's an awesome one. And also, this one's only about 5.7%, so it's not the strongest one that you have out there. And I had to do something kind of awesome. There's a glass I haven't pulled out in ages either. Back when I was working at HMV, there was like some other licensed merchandise that you're able to get, mugs, pint glasses, and such. There were Deadpool ones, but I'm not going to get into that because when we were closing down, all the remaining Deadpool glasses were shipped to us. So I think we had like a good 800 packs of those, and those are like 4 packs. So you can imagine just how much of that was stocked away. But this one's from the Big Lebowski, and it has the line, "I'm the dude, man." It's one of my favorite movies. So weird. Like, I never would have guessed that the phrase, forget about the fucking toe would be part of my lexicon. Seeing John Goodman just bashing a car just to get some kid to behave or talk to him. Or the dude in the cab saying, "I've had a rough night and I hate the fucking Eagles, man." Classic. And yet somehow the dude is the most normal character in that movie. Hard to believe. Hey, wait, where are my manners? No way that I can drink without cheersing all of you. So happy Sunday and happy end of the weekend. Very delicious. Now, what the hell is a Chackwell? They don't seem to give any description for it. So it's like, if you want to know what it means, who knows, who cares? Amazing. New England IPAs have never disappointed me. Love that kind of stuff. And as you're going to notice, I changed up my style a little bit. Instead of having the sweater on, it's a bit warmer now. I decided I want to put on a t-shirt, and what better thing to do than use a little bit of Metallica. And no, I'm not going to be using any Metallica music. I have a feeling if I play that, YouTube is going to block the video. And judging by my luck, I'm going to have Lars Ulrich appearing directly in front of me to give me a cease and desist order right on camera. That's just the way my life works. But we're going to get started on the recipe very soon. Now, in terms of Beef Wellington, I tried to look up to see what the origins are, and there was some belief that the first Duke of Wellington in England gave it the inspiration for the name, but there isn't any record of that. It's one of those dishes that isn't really documented, but this kind of style where meat wrapped in pastry was pretty common around that time. I think it might have started to be documented around the early 20th century, but the truth is it's not just an exclusively British dish. It's also available in France. So, it's like viande en croûte, or I've even seen it like in Poland that there's a very similar cuisine. And in fact, if I was to take a look at my Ukrainian cookbook, I can almost guarantee I can get variations of fish and breading or fish in the pastry. So maybe that's something I could revisit down the road. But my first experience with Beef Wellington was actually hearing about an episode of King of the Hill of all places, but it wasn't really tasted until I went with my guys to Gibby's to have it over there. And actually, it was a really relatively recent visit, so I'm gonna put a card in the top right corner for you to watch that. In case you wanna see me, go check it out again. But the only catch with that is you're gonna need filet mignon beef, which meat isn't really cheap these days to begin with, and especially filet mignon, you're gonna pay an arm and a leg for that. And also it's a very complicated recipe to do too. Maybe not complicated in the sense of ingredients that you would use, it's just that it takes a lot of care. Because the filet you can cook to be like medium rare, medium well done, but the trick is that you wanna kind of cook it so that the meat is adjusted to your liking, but at the same time you don't want your pastry on the outside to be too burnt. So it's kind of a balancing act to do as well. This whole thing could take like a good 4 or 5 hours to do. But luckily, Salmon Wellington is another variation I've heard about, and compared to that one where it could take 4 or 5 hours, salmon will only take you maybe about 1 hour tops, and it's a little bit more economical. Yeah, I know, salmon, it's pricey, but it's more economical than filet mignon. Can you believe it? This is the day and age we live in. And now that I got all that background out of the way, let's get to this. So, first thing we're going to be doing is just doing a little bit of chopping. The recipe I found online calls for shallots, but since I had some trouble finding, actually I didn't have trouble, I just didn't go to any of the markets, but for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to use half of a white onion. It's going to do the same thing. One thing I remembered hearing a lot when I grew up was green onions. We used to refer them as shallots, but you go into stores, you're only going to see them listed as scallions if you're within English Canada, or oignon vert in Quebec. But it turns out they're very different things. A shallot is not going to be peeled and chopped like an onion. When you open it up, it actually is going to be coming apart almost like cloves of garlic, so that instead of cutting it like this, where you're going to get one continuous round piece, a shallot is going to be segmented. So something to keep in mind. Maybe one day I'll be able to use that on the channel, but the question is, am I going to find a recipe that I could justify buying all of that? You never know. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm just taking like half my onion and I'm just going to chop it up. Like so. And I'm trying to keep a good distance too, because I already know that these onions can be kind of deadly. Make you cry, make you say game over. And yes, I've done that gag before, so don't even try to point that out. All chopped up now. And I think the fumes are getting to me because I am kind of crying a little bit. Yeah, eat your heart out, Elton John. So now that my onion is all cut up, I'm just going to keep this aside and I'm going to go for my next ingredient. No. Let's push it back so I can have it captured closely on camera instead. Now, what I'm going to need next are some cloves of garlic. Recipe calls for 2. Oops, I'm getting some skin here. Skin on skin action for everyone. And I need about 2 cloves of garlic apparently. I read that on the recipe and it said 2 and I thought, amateur. Just take whatever's left on this head of garlic and then chop it all up. We have an unwritten rule in Ukrainian culture where you don't want to stinge on your garlic because it's good for you. It has a lot of nutrients and it could put hair on your chest too. If you're lacking hair, if you've already got hair, you know, who cares? Just enjoy your garlic. There's plenty of worse things out there and things that are more deadly. Well, I guess elevators could be deadly too. Well, somebody else knows how to hack my channel besides Dave? I don't get it. So all my garlic is minced and chopped up, so I'm going to keep that aside. So next thing I'm going to do is get a bit of liquid set up for this. And the next ingredient is actually going to be a simple one, just some plain white wine. Now, I probably already covered this before when I was doing some Milanese risotto, but you don't have to go too fancy when you're choosing your wine. when it comes to cooking, you don't want to go to the liquor store and get yourself a bottle of Sancerre, like a good French wine. That is going to cost a lot and you're not really going to notice the taste of it. You just need to get yourself a simple house wine at most grocery stores. It costs you maybe under $10 depending on where you go. And then you just measure 1/4 cup of that and then you're good to go with that. I don't know if I also cover this on the Milanese recipe, but I don't know, not that. Get rid of it. I don't need people to remind them that I was reading some National Pornographic when I was working on that. But you're probably thinking white wine with this, but there's also red wine you could cook with. What's the difference? I guess it comes down to the type of grapes that they use. White wines are pretty good pairing when you're doing fish, when you're working with vegetables. Red wines, they pair really well when you're working with red meats, with chicken and the like. So that's kind of your way of working around it. I actually remember, it was one of the James Bond films. It was From Russia with Love, where he's talking with the henchman of the main villain on a train, and the henchman is actually ordering some red wine to go along with the salmon fillet that they were having on there. And there was a puzzled look on Bond's face, and I think later on he realized that he should have noticed as a red flag that something was off. Yeah, I guess if you know your wine pairings, that's one way to know if someone's good or bad. So what I'm going to be doing next is preparing the rest of the liquid part, and the creamy part of this is going to be some plain cream cheese. I've seen a recipe or two that says you could even use Dijon mustard in this, so I guess it comes down to personal preference if you want it tangy, smooth, or whatever. And I'm sure if there's anyone watching this online, they could just tell me in the comments section what you would use if you were me. Now, what do they do? They're saying they want to have 3 ounces of cream cheese. So if you're used to using tablespoons, cups, how would you measure that? I think I figured out the little trick to this. Obviously, if you're working with a good measuring cup, what you're going to see on one side is that they're going to say the number of cups it is, like 1 cup, 3/4 cup, 1/2 cup, and etc. The other side is going to give you the measurement in milliliters if you're in Canada, or in ounces. So it will show you 4 ounces, 8 ounces, and the like. But in case you're not paying attention to that, there is actually a simpler trick to that. When we were in school, or if you're taking any nutrition courses, they would usually say that you should use you should drink 8 ounces of water per glass and 8 glasses a day. So 8 ounces is the equivalent of 250 milliliters. With that in mind, that means it's 1 cup. So in the same 3 ounces, essentially it's just gonna mean having 1/3 of a cup of cream cheese. See, sometimes it's just simple math and science to get the job done. 1, 2, and just a little bit more to fill it up. There we go. I might have a little bit more than I need, but that's the beauty of cooking. You don't have to be exact to a science. You can estimate or sometimes eyeball, give or take. It's very different from baking, where that you really have to know your stuff. So you probably noticed that I also cut up some baby spinach over here. I needed the equivalent of 5 ounces worth, but I gave a little bit more because I wasn't going to start measuring that from scratch, just eyeballing it there just to get an idea. Very funny, very funny. Now I just gotta go beat up Bluto. So I got that. I got 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan all set up here, and the equivalent of 2 tablespoons of butter in the pan. I just eyeball that as well. So more or less, the ingredients are all set to go for getting the liquid set up for the Wellington. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this onto medium-high heat, start melting this. Then I'm gonna add my, where are they? My onion and garlic. You'll notice I put it in another bowl just to clear out a little bit of space. Then once that becomes translucent, or at least the onion becomes translucent, then I can start adding the cream cheese, the Parmesan, and then I could do the spinach and the breadcrumbs. Oh yes, almost forgot to mention, I will need breadcrumbs. It's not too much. You just need to get some plain breadcrumbs, around 2 tablespoons worth, and then mix it all together. Once things are all mixed in, you're gonna know it's ready once the spinach is softened up in here. Then once that's done, you keep it aside, and then you could start preparing your dough and your fish. All right, so I guess I wasn't as clear because I was doing this in silence, but essentially, you just want to make your onions translucent, where it's like partially see-through but not entirely transparent. Then you would add your white wine in there, give it about 5 minutes so that the liquid is going to be cooking well and it's going to evaporate mostly. Then you can add your cream cheese to be able to blend it all together to give it a nice thick texture. And then after that, you could add your breadcrumbs, your spinach, and then your Parmesan cheese to give it creamy. So the idea with that is you just want to mix up until your spinach is all soft. And now that that's done, I have it kept aside and off the heat. And maybe what I should do, okay, I'm gonna preheat my oven to 390 degrees. Man, what an odd number to use. But that gives me enough time to be able to prepare my salmon. So what I did was I got this nice big piece of filet over at Costco. Costco usually has a really good deal when it comes to fish generally. Salmon can be pricey, but then Costco, once again, is good bang for your buck. And they have it just the way you're supposed to have it. Typically with the Salmon Wellington, you're not supposed to have it with the skin on it. Costco doesn't serve it with the skin. The trout, they usually have the skin on. So it's all a matter of taste. Personally, I like having that skin to be able to crisp up, but for the purpose of this recipe, we don't have to worry about it. My one gripe sometimes is that I've found that there's been some leftover bones in here, so you do have to be a bit careful. What we need to do now is to cut this up into 4 pieces of 6-ounce or 7-ounce slices. Yeah, that's a very strange measurement, isn't it? But let's see if I can do it like this. You just want to take your blade, run it along here to give yourself a nice, hang on, slit like this. Once you're done, it's supposed to look something like this. So you have one piece, and then you keep doing it until you have 4 nice pieces here. And because I'm getting to the tail end of this, yeah, bad joke, of course, I can actually be a little bit more lenient and make 2 pretty long pieces, one that's kind of medium length, and then one that's going to look like this. And I'm sure it's still going to be just as tasty. But actually what I should do is I should spread this out, because I do have to season this too. And we're going to get to that in a second. So to season your fish, it's actually pretty basic. You just need to put a little bit of salt and pepper on here too. So I'm just shaking a little bit of this plain salt. Then I'm going to take a pepper grinder and just grind a little bit to give it extra flavor. I do have a shaker for pepper, but I only use those on specific occasions. This is coarse pepper that you can grind up. Fine pepper I really only use when I know I need to have a specific measurement, like 1 teaspoon, half a teaspoon, and the like. I'm sure there's an art and there's a way to measure a teaspoon worth of pepper when I grind up like this, but I'm not that skill level yet, so this is also going to suffice. I've got a nice big cookie sheet here, lined with parchment paper. I have to admit, parchment paper, great invention because you get minimal cleanup and things don't stick as much to that like it would, let's say, on an aluminum pan, on the porcelain, on a cookie sheet, because that's going to be a lot of cleanup to do. So next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be preparing my dough. So what you're going to need now is about 1 pound of puff pastry. 1 pound is essentially like 454 grams. Okay, this is 450 grams. If I really wanted to split hairs, I could say, hey dude, I'm off by like 4 grams from a pound. I want my money back. But nobody's going to be paying attention to that. For all intents and purposes, I have a pound of dough. You're going to get the stuff in the frozen aisle of your grocery store, so you're definitely going to have to thaw it out. And the trick to that is that you can either let it thaw in your fridge overnight, or leave it on your counter at room temperature for about a good 2 hours. I believe, let's see, I had this thawing out for 4 hours because I had left. But you know what? It's still gonna get the job done. It's not like, okay, it's been thawed out for more than 2 hours. Nah, not good anymore. And, oh my. Whoops. Okay, I might have messed it up over here because my pieces of salmon are gonna be pretty big, and yet these things are about 10 inches by 10 inches, which means that I'm only gonna be able to do like 2 pieces of it, I guess. My God. Oh well, I'll make do with what I got. It's not the end of the world. Don't ever cry over spilled milk, just like you don't cry over shaved fish. Forget about that. I know it's a bad joke. Bad and dirty.
Lucid tentacles test in sleeve and join in jointed jade pointed diamondback patterns.
Oh no. Stop that. Stop that. God. Yeah, I made reference to my HMV video about Captain Beefheart's album Trout Mask Replica. I like to showcase some new music on this channel and show the music of what's close to me, what's near and dear to me, but even I'm not going to torture with that stuff. That's like the kind of music where you're getting to the end of a party, you play that music because you want everyone to get the hell out of here. It's one of the weirdest albums I've ever heard in my life. And I hear a lot of weird shit. And if you think that was crazy, you've only heard like a fraction of that album. I've sat through the whole 68 minutes of that. Ugh. Anyways, I came up with a little plan, as you're gonna see here. What I did was, I just took my salmon and then cut it up into a little bit further, so I have a few smaller pieces, which will fit perfectly into the phyllo dough. No, not the phyllo dough, the puff pastry dough. And then I'm just gonna roll it around and make do. But there's also one other step I need to do. I need to break open 1 egg. And you're gonna see why in a second. I have 1 egg here. And I have it mixed in here with like 1 teaspoon of water, because you wanna do what's called an egg wash. The thing about this is that whenever you work with pastry, you just take like some whipped egg or yolk or even egg white, put a brush on it, like take a brush, grab some of this, and then spray it on top of your pastry. So then what that does is it actually helps to brown and golden it up a bit when it's baking. That's actually one of the little secrets when it comes to cooking and baking here. You just whip it up until it's really mixed, and then you can say, I am the Eggman. And before you're wondering what I'm talking about, I'm referring to the song I Am the Walrus by the Beatles. So that's a John Lennon lyric. I am the Eggman. Not to be confused with This Eggman. Very different. That requires a blue hedgehog to chase around. So once I got that, I'm just gonna get a little bit of flour. So what I'm gonna be doing here is I'm gonna be doing one fillet of salmon right here, and then I'm just gonna put some of this mixture right on top. Just like so. And then once I'm done, I'm just gonna take a little bit of my egg wash and then apply it to the edges here. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna allow it to stick to each other. Just like so. And then once that's done, well, maybe I'll be a little bit more generous. There, just make sure I have enough here, because I'd rather have a little bit extra than not enough. So what I'm gonna do then is I'm just gonna fold this all around, like this, just like so. And the seam is gonna be right over here. Voila. And I'm just gonna flip it around and then just do it once again for the second piece. So I've got 2 good pieces of Wellington that's all set to go in the oven, but there are a few more steps to go before I set it in. So this dough is actually a little bit thicker than my other point of reference, which is phyllo dough. Phyllo dough is very thin, like you can make millefeuilles with that if you're doing dessert. Or if you're doing spanakopita, that's what you would use, which would take feta cheese and spinach. It's something that my mom used to do years ago, so thinking about that. But the next step is that you just want to make a few cuts on top of the dough. But you don't want to do anything too thick. You just take your knife, and the idea is that you just want to score it a little bit so that you get a little bit of the texture on here, but not so much that you're going to be cutting through the entire dough. You just do these crisscross patterns, just like so. You know, it's kind of like working with drywall in a way. That you don't want to cut too much. You just score the paper on there before you cut it. Not that you would be thinking about drywall when you're doing Wellington. It's only someone like me that tends to think about that. There we go. So we got some scores. I might have one scission done, but that's fine. It's not the end of the world. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish off with a little touch-up of the egg wash. Just give it a nice good glaze on the top, like so. I feel like I just want to do this to make sure I don't waste anything. Just dab this. Worst case scenario, I have so much salmon over here that I feel like I could just dab it on there, add some breadcrumbs, and then voila. That'll be a couple of meals for me. There. Just like so. Then how long? All right. So next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your fish, throw it in the oven, and then you're gonna do it for around 25 to 30 minutes. I'm gonna do 25 minutes just to be on the conservative side, and we'll see how it goes from there. I've got all these other fillets, so I think I'm gonna try to do the similar thing. I don't have any other dough, so I'll figure it out. What I do need to think about too is, I'm out of fuel. I'm gonna need to get another brew for myself. Oh, beautiful. So yeah, the idea with the remaining fish is that I just put it on a pan for myself, put in whatever I could for an egg wash on it, added some breadcrumbs, and then I'm just gonna bake them for about 20 minutes. So that means that even when my Wellington is gonna be done, I'm gonna have like a nice amount of fish to be able to use for meals over the rest of the week. And as for the egg wash, I still have a little bit left, so what I'm doing is I'm actually taking a small amount to make myself a makeshift omelet. But it's probably the same kind of thickness as a crepe, so I don't know, I guess it's a blend of sorts. This is gonna be a real mishmash of supper, like more so than I thought, only because I didn't realize I would have so little dough for the amount of fish that I needed. But you know what, it's gonna be looking good. We'll call this a case of making chicken salad out of chicken shit. And yes, I know that expression is crude, I don't care. But the other thing I'm gonna be doing is another one. I'm gonna be doing another brew because I feel like I gotta have something else to wrap things up. And this is one that I picked up from Peluso today earlier on the walk. It's something from the Trèfle Noir, which I think I showcased a while back when I did that Enigma double IPA. And this one is called Hopelay, and it's a New England Pale Ale, which means it's not gonna be as hoppy. It's pretty good. Oh, Nelson Sauvin. So I guess it's gonna be like Nelson Muntz hops, so you're probably gonna start laughing, ha ha, after you're done this. I wonder, like, Hopefully. Whoa, this one's getting explosive too. Actually, before I do that, let's turn this off. What is it with my beers being explosive today? The other one I didn't bring home today. I brought it from earlier in the week, but something seemed to have shook it up. Okay, it kind of looks like a New England IPA, but I think it's not going to be as hoppy, like I say. It's still Hopefully. It's like, what's this even supposed to mean? Why? It's almost it makes as much sense as Odelay. Oh, right. I guess it's a little bit like trying to take English lessons from Beck. Good luck with some nonsensical words. This looks like a very delicious, if a little bit sinful dish, because I didn't realize just how big this thing would be when it's cooked. So I feel like I'm gonna be just having half of this for supper today, along with my mini omelet. And I'll get some spinach salad too to make sure that I'm gonna be fine. Now, what I'm gonna do then is I'm gonna cut this in half. See how it looks? Ooh, yes. So obviously, if you want to know if your fish is cooked properly, all you got to do is look inside and see, does the fish flake off? If it flakes off, it's cooked properly. If it seems like it's a bit slimy, you got to cook it a little bit longer. Wow. Okay, this is the first time I've actually worked with puff pastry, so I had no clue that this thing would be puffing up as much as it did. But hey, first time for everything. Now, I think you all want to see the taste test, so of course, I am not going to disappoint you. So get a little bit of dough here with some of the fish. Ooh, I can actually smell the butter in this thing. Simply amazing. Oh yeah, this is really awesome. I love the flavor of the filling in here with the salmon, the little sauce I put in, the dough is just flavorful. It's just beautiful. And I don't think I'm gonna need too much else because this is a very filling meal. It's like my experience at Gibby's. The Beef Wellington, it's a very rich dish, and they would serve it with whatever you want, like a potato or a Monte Carlo potato, and there was gonna be the bread and the pickles that come before that too. You know, I would probably do a Monte Carlo potato if I wasn't afraid of screwing it up again. Oh, and actually, I'm gonna give you a favor. Click the top right corner and then you'll see how I tried to do this earlier in the summer and failed miserably. But I guess the one upshot to that is that I did manage to grill a kiwi live on camera, so, you know, I entertained everyone, tried something new, and my devoted followers probably think I'm insane. Ah well, not much you can really do about that. But I can say, thanks for watching this edition of the Wandering Ukie Cheese Café. We had a successful meal, good brews, and etc. with a lot of fun. So if you enjoy watching this stuff, just be sure to click on the subscribe button below, put notifications on, give me a thumbs up if you enjoy my antics, because once again, hitting that like button helps to promote my videos and my channel down the road. And if you have a recipe you want me to cover down the road, area of Montreal to discover, like a neighborhood, maybe a bar, restaurant, someplace that has a good drink, leave in the comment section. I'll see what I could do. Till then, take care everyone and happy Sunday. Wow. It's just amazing. What more could you ask for? Oh, I guess you could ask for winning a lottery or being drenched in a pile of cheese, but sometimes that's a bit too much to ask for, right?